Doesn't it? I miss the chicka chicka.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're always off time.
I got you. I see what you did there. Hi, I'm Jay.
And I'm Jeff.
And I don't know the theme song music very well.
No. Welcome to Arguably Correct.
Where we don't know, where I don't know anything.
And some people might agree with that.
I'm sure they do.
And I'm sure some people would agree with that on me too, for that matter.
Fine.
So I was, I think I was on Facebook the other day and saw a post about, what was it? Life skills, that there was a special class that somebody was sharing that they did, like, I think it's like a 6-hour class, and only one class to teach kids how to balance their checkbook and things like that. And
where was this class at?
I think it was somewhere out west,
out west. Was it in their school, or do you have to like sign up special?
You had to sign up special for it, but it was put on by the school, and they brought in professionals like insurance agents to talk about insurance and retirement people.
Wasn't during the day.
I don't know that it was during the day, but it prompted me to wonder, like, that should be it seems like that should be a thing. And then something kicked inside of me and go, well, wait a minute, is that really a school's responsibility? Is that really society's responsibility to teach children about how to, balance their checkbook, insurance? Yes. Why do you say that?
Well, they're already going to school anyway. And we used to have home ec where they teach you how to cook and, sew and all of the, the other, I guess, life skills that you had to worry about then. And that was a mandatory thing when I was in school. You had to take home ec. I mean, I think it was only a one semester, who knows, but you had to take it.
And I think it was either shop or home ec, wasn't it? At least at my school, I think it was
both.
either.
I know that I took both. I took shop and I took home ec. I mean, my reasoning was basically a write-off class, how to measure, it was just dumb.
Do you still use that information probably
to
this day, right?
I cook a lot, right? So yeah, I do. And I think what's the harm in having like one semester of a class that like shows you how to get a mortgage, how to get a car, how to do the things that you need to do. It seems, and maybe again, it's just that we're bitter old men now, but it seems like a lot of the kids that are coming out nowadays are fucking stupid. They don't know how to do
for sure
everyday stuff.
But I mean, it kind of brings me back to the point of why is that society's responsibility, not the parents? And
that argument could go farther than like, okay, why do we have school at all? Why are the public funded schools at all?
And that makes sense to me because not every parent, and it kind of goes back to the answer that I heard was, most people can't teach algebra 2, or have time for that matter.
A lot of parents don't know how to take care of themselves financially.
And that was part of the answer that somebody gave me and said, I think I know about this, that, or the other, but I really don't know if I do. But then again, I think I know a lot of teachers that don't know that shit either. So maybe, and their counter was, well, this program brings in professionals, and maybe that's something that schools should look into. Is you bring people in that field.
Just write a curriculum. You don't have to bring in professionals. Just I think.
But maybe you don't believe in credit cards or debt, and you're talking about mortgages.
Teach them about credit cards. Teach them because there are good things about credit cards, and there are, of course, awful things. And if you don't use them right,
Dave Ramsey would disagree with you. There's no good thing about a credit card.
Who?
Dave Ramsey.
I don't know who that is, but I mean, he's just
Financial Peace University, man. He's like one of the leading talking heads on trying to keep yourself debt free and et cetera, et cetera. He's got good stuff.
But credit cards, he's wrong, because credit cards are good. They build your credit. It's like I use my credit cards every month when I'm getting gas or food or just my normal purchases. I'll put it on the credit card. But then at the end of the month, I pay my credit card off.
You're not most people, though. You're not most people. Most people don't do that. They'll intend to do that, but they don't.
And they just don't pay the bill.
And that's why they're making so much money.
Make the minimum payments. Yeah.
Correct.
Well, but that's why you need a class saying, here's what this is for. It's a tool to help build your credit. That way, when you go and you want to buy a car, or you want to get a mortgage, or you want to buy an investment property, or whatever else you need credit for, you've built your credit up the right way, and you're not sitting, in an insane amount of debt.
Yeah.
And nobody knows, I shouldn't say nobody, a lot of people don't understand how to build credit and how to, I guess, manage their own money.
Well, I'd say it was something that kind of happened to me early on. Was my parents, my dad particularly, and again, nothing wrong with this. This is the way it was, and I kind of liked it. As he's a cash guy. He doesn't believe in credit cards either. Don't go, pay cash, don't go into debt, which is the right way to be. Unfortunately, I never had what they called ghost credit. I didn't have anything because I'd never had a loan. I'd never have anything. Yeah. So when I got on my own and trying to do things, it was a struggle. You know? And then a few things that I did get, I ruined. I screwed up. you know, because I was me, you know, for that matter.
And it happens. I think everybody's
It
made
does.
mistakes, but I think that if you teach them ahead of time, hey, here are these tools, here's how you function in our capitalist society that we've got, and here's what you do, you can make it and you make it easier for them. They don't have to figure it out on their own. They don't have to ruin their credit before they have to go back and fix it. They can just build good credit to begin with.
Right.
And it's not just credit. It's, like I said, you know, credit cards, insurance. Save up money when you're young and don't rent. Buy a house.
So now you have, you know, a lot of your insurance agencies, they will deny you insurance just based on your credit score, which to me,
Really?
Oh yeah, they check your credit score and base your rate on your credit score.
For car insurance or for homeowner
car
insurance?
and
Really?
other side, well, not like health or whatever, but car insurance for sure.
I did not know
Progressive,
that.
I think, is a real big one on that one. I mean, they do offer pretty cheap rates if you have good credit and you don't miss a payment. So you miss one payment with Progressive, at least that's the way it was when I had it. But you miss one payment with them, your rates go right up to the top tier, and you get hosed. But
I did not know that.
and then the thing is, and I don't get that. So you pay monthly. If you don't pay your payment, they cancel your insurance. So it's not like they're loaning you money. You know, there's no. But I think they see that if you're a bad credit risk, then you're probably higher risk in the insurance world. You know, maybe you're less
suppose,
responsible.
But it's something too that you have to drive in this state. You have to legally have insurance.
True. Yeah.
So shouldn't they make that accessible? And at some,
It's accessible. It's just you're gonna pay more for it.
well, yeah, but and that's where you get into the social side of
And
it.
that
You know,
doesn't-
what if you don't have the money for it?
Right. The poorest people, the people who can least afford all these things, wind
the
up
ones
having to
have
pay
to pay the
for
higher
higher
rates.
risk.
Yeah.
It is kind of counterintuitive. You know, even when you think about like movie stars and stuff like that, they get so much free stuff just to advertise them, but they're probably the people who need this stuff the least.
Plus, you don't have to have insurance. You can also have a bond.
Yeah.
So
you have to have a $50,000 bond in the state of Ohio.
Set that aside and
Yep.
Which, I mean, only the wealthy do that. I don't know many people that just go, I got an extra 50 grand laying around. I'll put it into this bond for my insurance. It'd be great because you wouldn't have to worry about paying your monthly.
No, but I mean, if anything ever happened, you'd only be covered up to that bond, right?
Yeah.
You know, so that would
But
kind of
again,
stink.
if you can afford the bond, you can probably afford to pay what,
Potentially, yeah.
depending on what happens.
Depending on what happens. So, I mean, that's the thing, though. In school, so, excuse me, they, do things so well as it is right now. Now we're gonna those life skills, though. I mean, I think it is essential, and I would put it on the burden of the schools just because collectively they have the resources,
Yeah, and it seems like,
and you should be able to opt out. You shouldn't be forced. It shouldn't be a mandatory class.
why not?
I just think there's people out there that maybe want to teach their children their way, and I suppose they could go
That's
through the class
fine,
and
too.
still teach their kids their own way, right? But
Yeah, I think it should be a part of graduating.
you think so?
If you're going to have schools, they already do the dumbest shit in schools.
I know. Well, all
they
they do is teach you to pass the standardized test.
Yeah.
That should be a whole other podcast. It drives me
we,
nuts.
We could definitely do one on
and
that.
that seemed to happen on our generation. You know, when we were coming out of school, at least my last few years in school, really started turning towards all these standardized
That was
tests.
Your
you know,
mistake for going.
for going to
I
school.
just quit school. Didn't have to worry about it.
Well, then there's that. That was not an option in my household.
Oh.
And actually, I
Well,
could have graduated early, but the school I went to, they needed the money, and they said they wouldn't allow you to do it. No, you'd had to transfer schools to do it.
It wasn't an option in my household either, so I left the
So you just left
household.
the household.
Didn't have to worry about it.
As much as I didn't like school, I enjoy learning. I enjoy learning things that I want to learn about, or at least from people who I believe know how to teach it. If that makes sense.
Well, that one guy you said doesn't know anything about credit cards, so maybe
Well,
you shouldn't listen to him.
Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
He knows a lot about credit cards. He just thinks that you should be paying cash. There's certain ways to build credit that are not necessarily that, like secured credit cards that you actually have an account tied to. That, maybe a $500, $1,000 takes longer, but basically paying cash and no debt. That's what he preaches, is no debt.
Yeah, but you can have a credit card and not have any debt.
Most people can't.
But that's up to their own.
Correct. I agree with you, but it's just it's a risky road to start. And that's his point: is that it's too easy to fail when you do that because something happens, and then
Do it right, dummy.
then there's that. Yeah, I mean, you've never been in financial.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that.
You've made mistakes.
I'm not saying. Yes, I have. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that any mistakes somebody could make, they're still going to make, and having a credit card, I don't know. It's a very useful tool if used correctly to build credit.
That's all.
I don't think of it as I've got X amount of dollars sitting there available for me to spend and buy things on. I look at it as
You're in the minority.
build credit.
I think. Yeah, that's not why most people look at it.
I mean,
I mean, in my younger years, there was someone in my life that, you'd say, how much money you have in your checking account? And they'd say like $600, and they had a credit line on their checking account of $600. I'm like, oh, so you have $1,200, that you need if you have to pay a bill. No, I only have $600.
Yeah.
Which means you have $0.
Oh, because they'd already used the okay.
Well, they're right at the top, or they're like, oh, I have $300. Are you $300 above zero, or are you $300 below zero and $300 less than your credit line?
Yeah.
And it was $300 less than the credit line. So I'm like, literally, when you get paid, you're gonna have $0.
But that's the other thing too. Like, what about all these kids that come out and they fall into this trap of the payday loan scams?
I fell into it.
Did you?
Yep. And I mean, I still had home economics. I knew better. I just didn't think I had another option.
Well, once you get into it, I think it's just you're fucked. I mean,
it was tough. It was tough to get out.
Borrow against a paycheck. Well, then when your paycheck comes, you have to spend that plus whatever, and then you have to go back and get it again. So it's just it's a
I had help
cycle.
to get out of that cycle, and it was unfortunate. Made some bad financial choices, and then that's when I started listening to Dave Ramsey. Oddly enough, and
I thought he cooked.
I started listening to him and started trying to adjust my, the way I spent my money and the things I did. And that's when I bought the house. And that's when I was basically debt free, except for the house. I didn't know anything, nothing, except for the house. But,
and I mean, I think my debt is probably less than most people's my age. I think. I mean, I work hard to keep.
You don't have student loans, so you're already above the.
Nope.
You're already above the chain there. So, yeah. Nope. No student loans. And that's the thing, too, in those life skill classes, that should be one of the subjects, I think, is, how student loans work, how compound interests work, how all this works against you.
Over for the next 15 years minimum.
I mean, it definitely is things that you should go in knowing.
Well, yeah, I mean, then maybe there should be like I said, that's why it should be a whole semester, because there's all these things to cover, You
think you do it all in one semester? Shouldn't it be like a little bit each year for freshman year? You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Like a little bit each year, like you learn about this, you learn about that.
But some kids
seems reasonable.
Some kids you don't have to go to college.
No, So here's the thing. So we talked about this with another friend of mine. We're talking about the college versus skilled trade.
Yeah.
And we've had conversations about it here, but skilled trade is definitely on the rise here. Again, in this day and age, there's not a lot of
this day and age.
There's not a lot of call for people with higher education. Everybody has a bachelor's degree, basically. Kind of, it seems like everybody does. It's like a high school diploma anymore. Does it open up doorways for you? Yes, it does. I don't have either of those, Dick. I don't. I mean, I have one, but not the other. And but you get the skilled trade, and the thing that worries me is, so you become a welder, which is, there's that. Yeah. And you do that for 10 years, and you cut your finger off. You can't weld anymore. And again, I'm just speculating. What do you fall back on? Right? Do you have to go find a new skill trade to learn? The thing about a bachelor's degree, or at least in education, is that even though your education is in beer sciences, you have an associate or a master's in beer, you can pretty much get nearly any job within reason, so long as you have a degree.
I suppose.
Period. So if your degree is in engineering, you can go into robotics and things like that, or you can, environmental sciences, you can still do other things. You just have the degree. A lot of places just want you to have that education.
Just don't get a degree in arts or music, because you'll just end up being unemployed.
That's not true.
For the most part.
Somebody very close to me has a degree in music, in fact, and they're an executive. That's what they do now. And when I found out what their degree was, they're kind of like, oh yeah, I got a music degree. It's
nice.
like, there's nothing wrong with that, right?
But the majority of people that have arts or music degree are working at McDonald's.
Well, yeah, the job opportunities are limited. You almost have to become a teacher or something along those lines. But I always wanted to teach too. I always thought that would be interesting, and like a community college level. Not college.
Couldn't do it.
I wanted to go somewhere people want to learn, and I don't know what the hell I teach them anymore. But it seems like
how to grow a beard.
How to grow a beard?
Yeah,
you got to think real hard.
Class. I'd take your class. I can't grow a beard to save my life.
Well, then there's that. They should teach that stuff. Even like personal grooming. They don't have any of that in school.
Didn't they cover that in was it health class?
I don't think they do it anymore though, do they?
I don't know. I
remember getting a bag of deodorant and some other like personal hygiene things from whatever company was sponsoring it.
Did they give you tampons?
I didn't, not me, no, right?
Well, you know, if they just made one out for everybody. And...
They may have had I think they had a male and a female bag.
Okay, gotcha.
Right? And now you'd have to have like 4 bags or 5 bags.
So you couldn't get away with that today.
You'd have to have 5 choices, 6
You'd
or
have
whatever.
people all pissed off.
And indeed, but
you know, assume my kid's gender.
and looking back, you got to think like there was a conference somewhere going, all right, the kids start stinking around 9th grade, so this is when we're gonna just like, here's some stuff.
Here's their parents forgot to tell them.
Yeah, and I mean it's got to be a hard thing, you know. Hey, you stink. And then again, do you really stink? It's natural. It's not like you're walking around with poop on your hands or something. You know, it's
you stink.
It's natural body odor.
The BO is rough.
And we know somebody who can't smell.
Yeah.
And doesn't realize that it's bad. That boy's bad.
I think he's getting better.
Oh yeah, sure. But I remember
because
sometimes
somebody had to say something to him.
You know that guy's in the house because
right. Because
there's no doubt about that whatsoever. So society should be responsible for teaching our kids.
Well, they already are. That's a system that we already have set up. That's why we have public schools. That's why kids go to school.
But those things are kind of, I think they're left out these days, for the most part.
No, I think they are. But I'm just saying, I think that while they're already there, that's the system we already have. Why don't they spend some time teaching these kids how to operate when they get out of school and how to survive? Because some of the parents clearly aren't doing it. I've talked to people who are, 20, 21, and they're like, how would I go about getting a house? Like, what do I do? I'm like, what do you mean? How do you not know that? Like, first you go talk to, and I walk them through the steps, and they're like, oh, I didn't know. Like, well, how? How did you not know?
Well, I don't know that I knew back then either.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think I knew. I just didn't give a shit.
Yeah, maybe. But today with the internet, though, I mean, you can learn or find out anything at a keystroke.
Well, then why aren't they?
That's a good question. And maybe they are. I don't know. I mean, it's my perspective from where I sit. I don't have kids, but I kind of hear the kids talk around me and like, we didn't know about this. We don't know about that. And again, it might be an
information is on your phone. If you get off of Instagram for a second, maybe look up how to build your credit score, you might figure something out.
Well, there was somebody older than me that was kind of making that comment saying, oh, with the internet, so on and so forth, you can just do anything. I'm like, well, yeah, that's true. But to find it,
that's true.
That's true. To find it, not only to find it and it be legitimate is not all that easy all the time. It's not just clear cut. Sometimes, if you want to find out how to buy a house, right? And you just type in how to buy a house and Google sends you to the one person who paid the most to get this.
Yeah.
So there's things that you need to do some sleuthing
involved. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. You can't just take the top of it.
Which I think kids probably know that more than adults.
Which was happening. We would talk about things and work related and he would search it and he's like, well, here's that. I'm like, no, don't go there.
Yeah,
that's an ad. That's an ad or that's.
You just got a virus.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's not as easy as just typing it in and clicking on the first link. It's not that easy. I mean, it is that easy to start there.
Depends on what you're looking up.
Correct.
Yeah.
But you got to kind of dig in. You got to compare research. It's just like going back to the library back in the day and looking at a few books and seeing kind of what matches, what doesn't match, what's reliable.
Books.
What are those things?
Yeah, right.
I just seen them build a new library in town and I'm going, what?
They did?
Oh, yeah. Brand new, beautiful one in kind of a bad part of town. And I think as much as I'm glad we have them, I don't know many people that use them.
I honestly haven't been to a library in a long time.
Now you can get the library on your phone, which is kind of nice.
Oh, really?
So you can check out books, audiobooks, videos, all that stuff, music on your phone, streaming too. You can stream music to your phone for free through the library system.
Did not know
and
that.
And the audiobooks, you get them for 7 days, and then you just have to recheck them out.
I have Spotify and Amazon Prime, so I'm good. If I want a book, I buy it.
Yep. I mean, it still costs you money.
Sure.
Right. I mean, you get you're in subscribed. I take it to no, you don't do Audible, do you?
No.
Oh, I love Audible, but
no, I don't. I'm more of I want to read the book in front of me. I don't want to.
Can't do it.
If somebody's in my ears talking, I usually just zone the fuck out and get lost in my own thoughts. Where if I'm reading a book, I kind of.
Is that what you're doing right now?
Book. What's that?
Was that what you're doing right now?
What's going on? What are we talking about? I'm getting more used to the headphone thing for the other stuff.
Are you?
But but as far as like listening to a book, no, because it just drones on for me, and I'm just like, no, I'd rather just have the book in front of me and read it.
There are some that I would agree with that. So subject matter in these schools, what do you think that would be? I think, like you said, balancing the checkbook seems a little archaic.
Well, but I still use a checkbook. I got to be one of the few.
You got to be one. I mean, I still have one for the select few people that won't take any other form of payment. You know,
Well, and all I use it for. I think the only two things I pay with that is a car payment and a mortgage.
I pay every bill online except the dude that mows my lawn.
Yeah, see, I get sketchy with some of that stuff. And like, okay, so I went to my mortgage just switched companies,
Mm-hmm.
and
Like you switched them, or they like sold out to somebody
they
else?
sold it to somebody
Okay.
else and then switched. But I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm locked in, you know, at my mortgage, at my
Yeah.
rate and everything. So I didn't really care. It just mattered sending a check to a different place.
Correct.
But
And hopefully they don't screw up your records.
it all seems fine so far.
Gotcha.
But both of these companies have a option to pay online where they just would take the money out every,
Oh yeah, automatic
you know,
payment.
whatever. And I'm like, okay, well that's nice. But then when I get on the website to set it up for that, they have no option to pay more. So I called, you know, both of them, and I said,
Yeah.
well, what if I want to pay more than,
The minimum.
yeah. And they're like, oh, well, you can do that. You just have to do this. And it's this big, drawn out process
Yeah.
to like print a thing out and get a voucher. And then, yeah. Because they don't want you paying your mortgage down any quicker.
My bank is not like that. It
Well,
has,
I don't-
it has the
these are-
minimum and has two lines that if you want to pay towards principal or towards escrow,
Yeah.
and then you can set that up.
And that's what I have on the statements that get sent to me in the mail. But if I do it just online, there's no option for that.
no, that's what I'm saying. That's online for me.
Yes, it wasn't online for either
your
of
bank
mine.
sucks.
Yeah, it's not a bank; it's a mortgage company. Both of them are mortgage companies.
Fair
But
enough.
so I mean, I could do it; it's possible, but it's much more difficult. So I'm like, well, screw you. You know, you go ahead and send my paper in the mail because
And
I
you
always,
got to get what? Get the envelope out and write the
It
check
takes
and
a couple of. It takes a few minutes. No
then
big deal.
put it in the mailbox and wait for
Yeah.
that guy to show up and hope that it gets there. I hate it. And not knowing that. Nah.
I don't mind it.
Mm.
And whenever I want to pay more, all I have to do is fill it in at the bottom.
Yeah.
You know, I want to put an extra $200 towards, you know, principal this month. I want to put an extra whatever towards escrow.
Did they teach you that in your home ec class?
No, if you pay extra on your mortgage, it'll be paid off way quicker. Like if anybody reads their mortgage statement, they'll know that they're very interest heavy at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
Like insane.
It's almost into 15 years before you start on a 30-year fixed
Yeah.
that you start paying down. But that's exactly where I'm at. I'm finally crusted that 15-year mark.
But I pay a lot of times. I'll pay. You know, I've paid double mortgage payments before.
Mhm.
You know, put my mortgage payment down and put it. You know, an extra whole
I've
payment.
accidentally done it. That was not cool, but there's that.
But I think if you pay like, I think they said, what is it, like $25 extra a month, you'll cut like 5 years off your mortgage.
Depends what the mortgage is
Something like
for,
that,
but
yeah.
yeah.
So I always pay extra towards it to get it, and they don't have the option is there online, but it's difficult.
Hmm.
And those are the things that you could teach in that class. Hey, here's how you pay off something quicker. You know, if your payment for your car is $277 a month, and you don't have an interest-free car payment, pay $300.
Mhm.
I mean, that will go a long way into taking, you know, saving money basically, and taking and get a 401k when you start working. You know, don't wait until you're 45 years old and go, I better start saving for retirement, because you're gonna
it's gonna be harder.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the class could teach, you know, all
So
those different options.
retirement savings.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. Plan for that. I know that you're only 18, but for fuck's sake, you know.
Well, yeah.
Nobody told me.
I do have the benefit of somebody, you know, my parents did tell me, you know,
Yeah.
my father was very good with money, you know, taught me how to use it. I didn't necessarily listen all the time. Sorry, Dad. But, you know, but I did have the tools. I still had the tools. I knew, you know, what's good, what's bad. And just because he had made his own mistakes over his lifetime and shared that with me, right?
Yeah.
And didn't want me to have the same hardships he had. And I think that's how that goes. And that's where I kind of get crossed up. Like, it seems like that should be the parents' side. But then there are some parents that never were taught themselves. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's a vicious cycle, right?
And I see it now. What I tell my kids, here's what and they don't listen. And I'm just like, well, I did my job. I told them if they're not.
So what would be any different if you had a class?
Well, I still think it helps. And maybe
Yeah.
if they're hearing it from two different places, maybe they would.
Maybe.
At least then they've got no excuse.
Correct.
You were told. You were taught. So if you meet somebody who's 25 and their credit is a complete, you know, mess,
Mm-hmm.
and you can go back and say, well, you got an A in your life skills class, so I don't know why you didn't use any information that we gave you.
Yeah.
Whereas now, you know.
Yeah. I will say I really enjoyed my home economics class. I still go back to a lot of those times to like when I'm cooking or doing anything like that. And the amazing thing is there's so many people out there that don't know how to cook at all.
I know.
Like, don't even have a clue. Like,
I love
how
to
do you
cook.
fry anything in a pan? Well, you put oil in it, and you know, or butter, and like you do that. It's like with all these cooking shows and everything on there, you think by now though that would kind of.
But I love to cook.
I do.
I
enjoy
thoroughly enjoy it.
I'm not as good as I used to be at it because I don't do it as much anymore. So I've kind of lost that skill. I didn't really think it was a skill I could lose, but definitely has been a skill I've lost. And I'm only good at cooking one thing at one time. I can't.
Oh, yeah? Can't do
like
multitasking?
I can, but I lose sight of all these things going on and mess it up or overcook something, and I get really weird about it. And then I don't know. The funniest thing is, you know, whenever I cook food, I don't necessarily want to eat it now. Like, it's weird.
Wow,
not that I don't want to eat them. I'm like full, or you know, like because I've either tasted or ate things as I was doing stuff or whatnot, and it's like, I just would rather have somebody, you know, making food for somebody else, and it's like, meh. But then, I mean, I
like
do.
that at all.
No. What's your favorite dish?
To cook?
Yeah.
I've been getting into Indian food for quite like, I don't know, probably a couple years anyway.
That's something I don't have a lot of.
So like tandoori chicken and stuff like that.
I don't have a lot of association with it. Went to one Indian restaurant not too long ago, and I loved it, and I'm kind of mad at myself for not going sooner. But you hear, and sadly, I've let TV, you know, dictate what I think Indian food is, and because you know every time they have a bad joke, it's like, oh, the Indian food made me sick or whatever, and it's, you know, not really the case at all, right?
My complaint with Indian food would be most of the places you go, when they say it's hot, it's really not that hot. And even like the recipe, because I want my food to be
subjective though.
Yeah, but I like my food to be like melt your face off hot. Like right. I thoroughly enjoy hot food. So when I go to a restaurant and then it's, oh yeah, this is the hot stuff, and then I get it and I'm like, you guys are fucking weak. So when I make it at home, you know, if it says add, you know, a tablespoon of cayenne pepper, I'm putting in like 3. And you know, when it's adding the, you know, the peppers for the
triple it, double, triple it,
double or triple, yeah.
What in home ec in school we had to do Asian cuisine, and we were cooking for the faculty, and I made a fruit stir fry. Because I was trying to do something different, right?
That seems like it wouldn't be a good idea.
You know, it wasn't bad, but rice and grapes and some other things, and you know, sautéed, and it was different. It was really weird, but
I don't want you to cook for me.
I got some points for originality, but after that, not so much. But I mean, it did teach me something. You know, you can experiment and things like that. And and in an environment like that with somebody over your shoulder, and even the teacher was like, "Is this really what you want to do?" I'm like, I'm going for something different, right? Not the same old.
Different's not always good.
Different isn't always good. You're absolutely right.
I mean, but you're right there. You don't know if you don't try.
You don't know if you don't try. That's right.
And
I'm glad to have the class to learn that too.
I usually take you know, any recipe that I'm cooking. Like, well, I do Indian chicken tacos, and like I made that recipe myself, and it took me probably 15 times to get it to where I think, okay, now this is what I meant for it to be. And the first 14 times the first time it was like, oh god, this is terrible. And I'm like, okay, well, I'd had this wrong with it, and you know, I worked towards fixing it. But
so the kids that are coming, you know, the 18-year-olds that are busting out of college or busting out of high school right now.
I said millennials this entire time. Fucking millennial whiny bitches.
I don't agree with that statement, but not completely. I think it's arbitrary, but
not all of them.
Not all of them. I mean, the same thing with our generation. We were, you know, a bunch of assholes.
I think I'm just the bigger old man.
Bigger old man.
Yeah.
But our kids, or our generation's kids, are gonna start appearing in life now, right? I mean, in general society. You know, they're adults.
Try to stay inside so much.
So I started thinking, I made the joke like, you know, who is to blame for all these millennials, quote unquote, and all these problems? You know, it's our kids. But I'm like, well, wait a minute. No, it's not. There was a generation before us, about 10 years before us, that kind of started this downward trend. People who would be about 50 right about now. It's their kids that are. Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, like the whole generation thing. Like, people are having kids every day.
Yeah.
So it's just,
you mean as far as like the
drawing an arbitrary line
between divisions? Yeah. But there are certain technologies, certain things that kind of happen at that period of time that does shape a generation.
But do generations get measured out that way, or do they get measured out by just X amount of years?
It's an interesting point. If you go and look at some of the generation, you know, guidelines, or not guidelines, but things that they separate them out, there's a lot of ambiguity between them. Because technically we're almost considered millennials. Well, I would be.
I don't pay much. What are we, Gen X?
So yeah, I think you would be firmly in the Gen X, and I'm kind of in between the Gen X and the millennial generation. Being 40, like I think 1982 is the cutoff for.
Did you just assume my generation?
Shoot. Well, then there's that. So society's responsibility to teach our kids to balance their checkbook.
I mean,
how to get insurance.
I think it should be part of the public school system we already have. If you want to have a different podcast about whether or not we should have public schools, that's a whole different, subject.
I think it's good to have the people who are skilled and teaching, because not everybody's made to teach.
Those who can't teach.
I do not condone that statement whatsoever.
Did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
Shit, sometimes my filter breaks.
Yeah.
So, no, but there are some teachers out there that don't, you could be teaching Algebra 2 and they don't have...
Well, you just said, earlier, though, a curriculum. If you have the curriculum, just teach the curriculum.
But that's what they're doing. But then if you have a question like, okay, how did you get to this? They're like, I don't know.
But that's
because the book said to.
So that kind of goes back to the point, like if you do just have a curriculum and just have a general teacher, a person who has a master's degree that can teaching this class, is that really a qualified individual?
I mean, I would think so, because we're not talking about Algebra 2 or trigonometry or calculus.
I don't know if
we're talking about
compound interest is pretty complicated.
Oh, it can be, but it's also... I mean, it's fairly basic math, I think.
Is. Yeah, you're right.
So I would hope that if you've got a degree and you have a master's degree, you'd be able to figure out how to explain compound interest to somebody.
Odds are not, because they probably all have a shit ton of student loans for the poor jobs that they're in. Because, that teachers get hosed with that crap. You spend $100,000 or at least $75,000 on a degree for a $40,000, $50,000 a year job.
So should we have a different college, I guess, payback programs depending on the profession that you get into?
They do, in a sense.
Do they? So, if you go into college to be a teacher, should you maybe pay a little bit less?
Your loans,
you're going to give back to the community in other ways.
The government does supplement some loans if they're not private, if they're federal loans. Gotcha. At certain schools, because you can have a loan forgiveness program if you make 10 years of qualifying minimum payments. For 10 years, and you're in a certain school system, or you work for a nonprofit, so on and so forth, you can have your student loans forgiven.
Was college always this expensive, or is it new?
It's gotten more expensive, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And that'd be interesting to do some research on that and kind of look in to see what the expansion on college debt, has been. What's the ratio? The same education cost 20 years ago at the same school versus now. And what does it get you? The return on investment's the shitty part, right?
Well,
this is one of the first times in American history that the generation following, the children of the parents making less than the parents did.
Yeah, they're supposed to do better.
Yeah, and that's one of the first times in history that's not happening. So.
These little fuckers ought to work harder. I'm kidding. Sometimes. I'm so kidding.
Are you, though?
I mean, for the most part, yes.
Yeah. I mean, you say that, but think about McDonald's. McDonald's, working in the back, a true worker, not the guy who kind of fumbles around. But that's a hard job. You know what I mean? Flipping bird, cleaning. But it's a high paced.
It's also not meant to be
I understand,
full time job.
But the guy makes $8, $9 an hour. Where, again, it's not always based on the amount of work you do, right? Yeah. Not every job is. So, the education, what you know, and some of the work you do.
When I was 15, 16, that's what Burger King, McDonald's, those jobs were for us, the younger kids. You could go in, you could make a couple $100, and that was what you didn't do it for a career. Yeah. And now when I go into restaurants, I see people who are in their, 30s, 40s, 50s working, and I'm like, well, but why didn't you?
Well, sad to say is if we didn't have those people working there, we wouldn't have people working there, because there's not enough people in the workforce at that age that are in the workforce to do those jobs anymore. And that's true.
I thought I read something recently saying that there are more jobs available right now than there are people to fill them.
That's correct.
So
the old people are having to fill, and that's my point, is that there's not enough people to fill the jobs, and so you're reaching into a market that not necessarily was intended for those kind of jobs.
And I was leading into the whole, we should pay fast food workers $15 an hour. They need a livable wage. No, you fucking don't. That's not a full-time job.
But it is to a lot of people.
But it shouldn't be.
I mean, who's to say it shouldn't be? I would have agreed with you until recently. I started thinking about that, but who's to say it shouldn't be?
Well, I guess, okay, if it is, because it's not meant to be a career.
Why? You're cooking?
Because it doesn't pay enough.
Okay.
So if you want to, move on and get a better place to live and have the things that you want to have in life, you probably shouldn't plan on working at those places forever, unless you are shooting for management or, you know, something like that.
Yeah, but
if
it's
you're
like
just- if
going
you're
to
just in the
play
back-
high school baseball and thinking they're getting on the major leagues.
No, I'm just saying that if you're working in the back and you're cooking burgers, that's fine. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you can't do that and expect to make the same money as somebody who does the welding or who does, you know, a skilled trade. You didn't.
No,
It's not made for that. The
I
job
can't
is it's a stepping stone into the workplace, I think.
I
That's how it
can't
was
say I
for us.
completely disagree with you, but it does cross my mind as I'm sitting at, you know, a popular wing joint, you know, looking in the back and seeing who the kitchen staff is, and I really love this food, and I'm glad it's here.
Wait,
right?
So Hooters, the waitresses, the people in the back are hot too? Is that what's going on?
They make the men cook there. But yeah. Anyway, so you see these people who are cooking back there, and you think, hey, I really like this place, and I like the food to be of a certain quality all the time. So you need people who know what they're doing, essentially. But you know they ain't making shit. And it's some, you know, 30-year-old guy back there that probably has child support and 2 kids. And I'm saying it's a bad choice, but I'm just saying this is a guy who relies on this job, and it probably doesn't pay him all that much. But I'm glad he's here, and I kind of feel like, man, am I taking advantage of this in a sense, like
No.
third party wise? But
Is it your
I'm
fault
glad
that
he's
he's
there.
got child support payments?
But I'm saying if we're in a utopia and everybody can move on, you would never have those people that would stay there long enough that you could continue to get this kind of product out of it.
I'm just saying it's up to the individual.
I don't disagree with you.
So
I'm glad that they're there, but it's
not
unfortunate that they are.
I just wish they'd get the fucking order right. That's all. Motherfucker, I asked for ketchup. How did I get home and I got no ketchup? Like, you had one thing to do.
Yeah. I mean,
You had one job.
they do a pretty decent job, I think, overall.
It depends.
Yeah,
I won't get into
You know,
bitching
even
too
parts of
much.
the country, it's completely different. It's not even generational.
Yeah.
Like, there's a certain part of the United States, I won't mention it, but somewhere around the Mississippi River area, that's, you know, it's just, there's just a different culture there, and people just respond slower, move slower, they aren't, and not to say we should be slower paced, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but we're used to a different pace here. You go there and it's very frustrating, and that's why a lot of those places, you know, even in Florida, I've talked to a lot of employers down there. We love hiring people from northeast because they have a
They
kind of a go-getter mentality. Yeah. Like even the crappiest of workers are still better than the resident
locals,
workers
yeah.
because they call it in Florida a flip-flop mentality. No offense to you Floridians, they're natural-born Floridians, which aren't too many of those, but
nice.
the flip-flop mentality. And, you know, so that's why they hire so many people from up north in Michigan, Ohio, and whatnot. And I personally, I think I feel that way too. It's like, you know, I have a sense of urgency and things like that in my work.
Go. Get it done.
Yeah.
On to the next.
We kind of jumped the shark, but
Yeah, it happens. We did it a lot.
yeah, I think we're going to agree on this one partly. I think you should be able to opt out, though, but that's my only caveat, to opt out. And I think they need to be... They need to bring in a curriculum and bring in professionals and not just let it be taught by a gym teacher.
You don't get to opt out of, you know, certain other classes, so why this one?
Yeah, but those are pretty core. You know, English, you're not opting out of that.
Well, most people seem like they did. But I couldn't opt out. I had to take government.
Yeah.
I couldn't opt out of government.
Nope.
You have to have
History, English.
it. Yeah. So this should be one
math.
too. This is the one you're going to use more.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I think then, like Algebra 2, most people aren't using much Algebra 2 right now, but you need to know how to pay your fucking
you
bills.
don't do synthetic division all the time?
I don't.
Yeah, you know, then there's that.
So,
But
my take on it.
well, I'm
Teach
Jeff.
these little fuckers something. I'm Jay.
And this has been Arguably Correct. We may not be right, but hopefully we're always arguably correct. So
And thanks for listening.